Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and reconvene the City of Tigard Budget Committee. For those of you joining virtually, please remember to turn on your mic when speaking and mute your mic when you're finished. If you have any questions or comments during tonight's presentation, if you could please put your name tag placard up vertically so we can call on you in turn. The team will be capturing all of our comments, questions, and requests for follow-up information if necessary. Public comment has been scheduled for 6:10 p.m. Please make sure that you have signed in to be called upon. Please keep comments to 2 minutes. The deadline for written testimony and registration for video testimony was by 12 p.m. on Thursday, May 15th. At budget committee meetings, we will be following the same public comment protocol as at city council meetings. We will not have scheduled breaks during this meeting. However, if you need to step away, please feel free to do so. If you are a voting committee member attending virtually, please note in the chat when you are stepping away and when you return. If you are unable to connect to the meeting or have any technical difficulties related to the budget committee meeting, please call 971-464-1476. This is call-in only. Texting this number will not work. The joint meeting of the City of Tigard Budget Committee and the Town Center Development Agency Budget Committee is now reconvened. Tonight's goal is to make monetary decisions regarding the City of Tigard fiscal year 2025-2026 proposed budget and Town Center Development Agency TCDA FY 2025-26 proposed budget. Let's start by asking Budget Manager Kalina Plath to conduct our roll call.
Aaron McCool,
Present.
Ethan Pastra,
Present.
Felipe Aguilar,
Present.
Gregory Brown. He's absent. Kelly Pemet,
Present.
Lauren Poling,
Here.
William Lewis,
Present.
Mayor Lube,
Here.
Counselor Wolf,
Here.
Counselor Gadusi,
Present.
Counselor Robbins,
Here.
Counselor Slack,
Here.
Counselor Shaw,
Here.
Counselor Hu,
Here.
Youth Counselor Maneni, absent. Roll has been called.
Thank you, Kalina. Our next order of business is to approve the minutes from the May 12th Budget Committee meeting. Copies of the summary minutes from that meeting have been provided to you all electronically in advance of this meeting. Are there any additions or changes to the summary minutes from the May 12th meeting?
I move to approve the minutes from the May 12th meeting. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just didn't see any motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
second. Okay. All right, I will now take a roll call vote for approving the summary minutes. And if you are in favor, please say yes. If opposed, please say no. Aaron McCool,
Yes.
Ethan Postral,
Yes.
Felipe Aguilar,
Yes.
Gregory Brown is not here. Kelly Piment, yes. Lauren Poling,
Yes.
William Lewis,
Yes.
Mayor Lube,
Yes.
Counselor Wolf,
Yes.
Counselor Gadusi,
Yes.
Counselor Robbins,
Yes.
Counselor Schlack,
Yes.
Counselor Shaw,
Yes.
Counselor Hu.
Yes.
Okay. The motion is adopted by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee. So next, so we're a little ahead of schedule. Do we have anyone, see, we are a little ahead of schedule for the public comment. Is there any objection to going ahead and proceeding early? Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and move forward with this meeting. Okay, at budget committee meetings, we follow the same public comment protocol as at city council meetings. The protocol can be found on the city website and on the PowerPoint slides for this meeting. As a summary, remarks should be addressed to the Budget Committee as a body rather than directed to any particular member. Personal attacks or threats, disruption of the meeting, use of obscene, vulgar, or discriminatory language, or in any way discouraging anyone else from participating are not acceptable. The mayor or presiding officer may interrupt members of the public speaking to the Budget Committee if they are not following public comment protocol. And the mayor and Budget Committee will enforce these rules uniformly and treat all perspectives and opinions consistently. If you wish to virtually provide testimony, please join the queue by raising your hand on Microsoft Teams. Or callers can use *5 to raise lower hand or use either their phone microphone button or *6 to mute and unmute. Please state your name for the record. Please speak directly into the phone and limit your comments to 2 minutes. Budget Manager Kalina Plath has collected the written testimony that has come to the city, and she has provided each of you with a copy, which we had no written testimony this time, so you will not have anything to read for that. Budget Manager Plath, has anyone signed up to speak in person? Okay, no. And Network Administrator, do we have anyone who has called in who is like to speak either through Teams or on the phone?
Not at this time.
Okay. I don't think we have any testimonies, so we can move on to the next agenda item. Unless, oh, sorry, Mayor Lube.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up and say we forwarded the response from Shayla regarding the question that she had and us looking for additional clarification. There were some good suggestions in there. I also note that she said she also finds that having an internal DEI team can really make a difference. And I was just wondering, we had a DEIB manager and those sorts of things. Is that currently in the budget for the next city manager to take a look at? I think that's just maybe the one thing that we can take out of her comments to ask a follow-up question on. I know we were paused on saying publicly we were paused on several key roles, knowing that there was a new city manager coming in and having that individual being able to fill out their team was important to the city council. So that is why it has been open.
So happy to speak on the budgetary portion. I invite Interim City Manager Emily Trich to talk about any sort of the strategic or programmatic. So from a budgetary standpoint, it is still included in the proposed budget for fiscal year 26. If you look into, I believe, Division 1700 in the budget book, there's a separate budget page for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging division. And so the position for the manager is still budgeted in there, along with additional things like training, professional services to stand up an actual program.
Thank you, Interim City Manager Trich. For the record, we have our Equity Advisory Committee, which will be sponsored or facilitated by our Equity Manager when hired, under the steady leadership of Executive Sponsor Halstead Bernard for some time. We're grateful for your contributions. That committee is comprised of teammates from across the organization, and they do meet regularly. They're chaired by Leandro Barrientos, who has been part of the equitable engagement work as well. Both the Equity Advisory Committee and the Equity Manager are funded in FY26.
Does that answer? Okay, all right. If there's no other comments or questions regarding public testimony, we are wildly ahead of schedule, which is kind of exciting. So let's keep moving. So the next item on our agenda is to go over the May 12th Budget Committee follow-up items. Eric Kang, our Finance Director, will now go over those follow-up items with us.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, sorry, I should have started out with this from the beginning. Finance Director Eric Kang. So I'm pleased to return on our third Budget Committee hearing. So tonight we'll be following up and having a motion to, or going through the process of approving the fiscal year 26 proposed budget later towards the end of the agenda. We have submitted several follow-up items to the committee via email. We have a Q&A part 2 that addresses some of the follow-up questions that were asked, in addition to some of the questions that were asked during the last hearing. In addition to that, there was some supplementary information regarding the TCDA and their grant funding that was also sent as an attachment in the last email. And so with that, I won't go through each of the questions line by line for this committee, but happy to open up to any questions for the committee before we get through any of the motion process.
Okay. Sorry, did you? Mayor Lube?
Sorry, I'm getting all of my pages open. Thank you for the additional follow-up and questions that were answered. I want to speak to some concerns regarding the information provided that I had requested for the general fund transfer percentage and the park percentage over the years. I guess I have some budget comments in general. In a weird way, they all sort of weave and tie together around some concerns. So I will start with concerns over the percentage, taking kind of what I would consider a wild swing in this fiscal year. And it also ties into the requests that were made of all of our departments to make an honest effort to really look at their budgets and make some reductions. And I want to commend really most of the departments who looked at their budgets and made some, reductions that are going to be really hard. Some of them were the bus passes, which while lowly utilized, right, like it's going to make a difference to the individuals who are using them, or consulting services or different things that are available. I want to express concern over the community development one, which essentially the recommendation for the cuts to their department was to cut a program that the city council is looking into and currently in the process of trying to decide whether or not, like, what our steps forward are. It's concerning to me that rather than waiting until the city council makes the decision, it feels as though they have preemptively cut the parking program, especially when we know in the Tigard Triangle, they're having a lot of trouble having those parking spaces turn over in front of the businesses, and they're having trouble filling out those businesses. Those things are interlinked when people aren't seeing the turnover happen, potentially in the front of those parking spaces. And I don't know what the city council is going to do, but I'm concerned that that was the only reduction done for community development, and it was a program that the city council hasn't yet vetted because we're in the middle of vetting it. Okay, sorry. So I'm concerned about that, and I'm concerned about what feels like a lot of reductions that are made and hard decisions that we're having to have. And the Parks and Rec fee is continuing to go up and be a higher percentage. We know that it is not equitable to charge somebody in a townhouse the same rate as somebody in a $1.5 million home. And we're continuing to go up and have the burden of individuals paying. I'm sorry, apparently I wasn't prepared to talk today. To continue to be inequitable and force that to go forward and have it that higher percentage. I continue to be concerned about the grants position. The more that I hear, the less grants are going to be available that we have. They are going down. Most of the regional and state grants that we're getting are federally funded. In the transportation meeting that I had last week, the city of Tigard is now carrying the potential burden of funding our Safe Routes to School coordinator, which is funded by a grant that Metro is not guaranteeing because it's federal dollars flowing through. I understand how nice it would be to have a grants manager. I think it would be an incredible thing, but I think it's a nice to have, not a must have. And this doesn't feel like the budget cycle to put in nice to haves, especially not knowing how many grants are coming in, knowing most likely that they're going to be going downhill, and knowing that the budget manager that is going in and being funded through other means, not new general fund dollars, will be addressing some of the grants in community development, which I believe receives the bulk of the grant dollars. So I have some pretty serious concerns around that. And yeah, I mean, those are my concerns because I think we're potentially going to have some really serious conversations regarding and hard conversations regarding potential library funding next year. And I'm worried about the nice to have decisions that we're having now that are going to be a lot harder next year if we're in potentially an even more challenging situation. So my recommendation is to not move forward on the grants manager position and continuing to look at and evaluate in the next year. It would be my recommendation that that funding goes into, if possible, because it's general fund dollars, towards Parks and Recreation to be able to have less of a fee raise on individuals. I don't know what that looks like, but that would be my recommendation, and continue to ask community development, because there's a possibility if we continue the parking program that we're going to have to find a way to come up with the money that they cut when we asked for what I feel are department cuts when they cut a city council program that we're looking in. That was a lot of talking. Does anybody have questions? They were sort of interwoven.
Ethan Postle?
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering what the parking program is. I'm just not familiar with what that is.
Yeah, apologies. We've had a lot of conversations. There's been parking discussions 20 plus years that I think, have had with Main Street, and now the Tigard Triangle. It is, I think, the worst kept secret that there are like 2-hour signs that aren't enforced. And we have some businesses that are concerned that there isn't enforcement to have the turnover. We have businesses who are concerned where their employees can park for safety reasons and other reasons. And so we are paying right now to do a study on the downtown and the Tigard Triangle of sort of a level set of data of what is actually happening versus the way somebody may feel or perceive. So we're currently receiving that information. We got a first draft, and the parking program is to potentially be able to fund enforcement and parking enforcement throughout the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Counselor Shaw?
I'm just wondering, it looks like staff may be ready to speak, so perhaps I'll let you all speak and then address a couple of concerns I have about the topics mentioned.
Wonderful. Community Development Director Sambo Kirkman. With regards to the parking program, our intent was to look at clear programs that we knew would continue further. The parking program itself is kind of in a what I think is a flux as we discuss the study and the details of it. However, we have funding through it currently that we were provided this current fiscal year, that because of the delays involved allows us to take that program through at least to the fall season itself. So it would allow us to establish the actual enforcement and make that determination. Again, with the with our line items, we did identify other programs that we'd be interested in continuing for the next fiscal year. However, if it becomes a priority of the council that we continue with the parking program, there is availability within our funds to be able to shuffle or again come back to council to give you a clear idea as to what the cost, as well as what other unintended consequences may occur if we were to proceed with enforcement. So that was kind of the intent of removing that out of our existing budget. Our proposed budget at this time is to ensure that we fully intend to continue with discussing the parking program itself, but come back to council prior to the actual enforcement and ask the council what direction they would like us to go. And that was kind of always the intent of it, not that we were dismissing the actual program itself.
Counselor Shaw, and then
Thank you so much. And that was my understanding. So thank you. And thank you, Mayor, too, for your comments. I'm concerned about not funding a grants position. And I understand the federal government, some of the states won't have as much dollars coming from the federal administration, which I think is even more vital that we look for other sources. And there are other sources. I also think if we look at cities our size and above, they have grants managers, and that'll help set us up for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So I'd recommend that we continue with the grants manager.
Aaron McCool?
Thank you. I was just wondering, can we find where is the line item of the grants manager so that we can kind of see the amounts that we're discussing?
I had it in the slide 88 of, I think, the first day.
Okay. The 160,942. Thank you.
Related to the grants manager position, that one is embedded in fund or division 2,500 under contracts and purchasing. I believe the total dollar amount was in a presentation during our first hearing for 161,000, and that is off the top of my head. But if you give me a moment, I can find the exact number. And then one thing to clarify, that is a central services fund. So it is the program was designed so that the position would be self-funded through grants. A portion of the grants would go towards administration, which is allowable under de minimis administrative cost recapture for virtually every grant, for any federal grant or any other government grant out there. And so a portion of that would be used to fund this position. So it's not exactly just in the general fund to be used for any other purpose. It would have to be pulled out from our essential service allocation.
Can I ask, are we using those administrative dollars right now? And if we are, where are they going to be pulled from and backfilled from?
Well, the assumption is that we're assuming that we're going to collect revenue to fill this position with existing grants that we have.
Right. So are we using the administrative option now?
Oh.
So we're not. So we would
Currently, we are
have
not.
less grant dollars to go towards the item, and we would be, so for math's sake, say we had $1 million and we were allowed 10%. So from future forward, we would no longer use $1 million towards the item. We would use 900,000, and then 100,000 would be taken internally.
That's a simplified way to look at it, but essentially, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, or we would ask for $1.1 million.
Yeah, one of the things that we have not done historically is capture the true cost of administrating a grant. So anytime you receive a new federal grant, it does add additional administrative burden to our staff to oversee, make sure that we're complying with all the requirements of the grant. And we haven't recognized that additional cost, and rather 100% of the grant would go towards the programmatic costs, with just the added workload being added to our existing team.
Aaron McCool?
This is maybe an oversimplification, but if the cost of the position is $161,000, they would need to be responsible for at least $161,000 more in grants coming in to cover the cost of the position without losing any funding that is currently available, correct?
If you could rephrase it one more time. Sorry.
In order to pay for this position, since it's paid for by grants that are coming in, we would need to bring in 161,000 more in grants under the grants manager than we are now. Otherwise, we'd be losing money on it. That basically correct?
Well, there would have to be an internal decision made on what the cutoff looks like as far as when to start collecting based on. So whenever the election is made, so if you have like an existing grant, there is potential that we could continue, like say we have a grant that's already in place for 500,000 and we haven't fully spent the full obligation, we could go back and make the election to recapture the cost for administration and use those funds to pay for for this position. Otherwise, if the decision was made to not do that, then and only apply to new funding, then yes, we'd have to collect at least 161,000 more to pay for this position.
Okay, one follow-up question. Do we have a rough estimate of what our grant funding was in this last fiscal year?
Right now, so as of fiscal year, for this current fiscal year, we have approximately $1 million. That is a rough number right now. In total outstanding grants, we have a $500,000 grant for our HVAC system. We have a $300,000 grant for our CSO program. There's CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grant, for about $150,000. And then we have additional other smaller grant amounts as well.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to continue down this a little bit. Sorry. So the first few you mentioned, the HVAC and the CSO, those are both one-time grants that were locked in by one of the Congress people, correct?
That are delivered over multiple years.
They're delivered. Okay, but the 500,000 is total.
That's correct.
Okay.
A one-time allocation.
Okay. I can see having a little bit of concern about $160,000 when our grants are significantly. That does raise a concern that they would have to bring in that much more of an amount that we don't have a very high amount on. And I know right now it's like $1 million, but like 80% of that is tied up in those two specific grants. So I understand. So let me just ask this. With the amount of federal funding that is disappearing, I know there are other lines of funding. Are those being identified? Like, do we feel like there's enough grants out there that we can actually pay for this position directly through the grants?
There's.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. The grants that Finance Director King listed was not a complete list. So in addition, there was over $1 million in the Safe Streets for All planning grant that sets us up well for a Safe Streets for All construction grant. Those are on the order of over $10 million. We had pursued a build grant, formerly a raise grant, on the order of $25 million. A few months ago, we submitted an application for a $3 million community change grant. So we punch above our weight. We definitely pursue opportunities. In addition to what Director King had shared, we received a state legislative session earmark, or this ODOT did on our behalf, for $3 million that we continue to work with ODOT to execute. And those are for the improvements on Hall Boulevard. We are on deck, hopefully, to receive an earmark this legislative session for the public safety building renewal. There's a lot of grants. There's a lot of irons in the fire. Rather than focused on pursuing grants, which is the work of many folks throughout the organization, every director in this room, as well as the city manager's office, this position is focused on compliance. Failure to comply with the rules and expectations of grants, whether it's a federal, state, or regional grant, whether it's a direct allocation earmark or something that goes through a really comprehensive process, could put us at odds of failing ineligibility to receive grants into the future. It reports on how well we comply with our council goals, our community values and ideals, and how we can make inroads and really big moves. It's hard to be an organization focused on big moves without pursuing big funding. And this is an opportunity for us to swing for the fences.
Thank you.
Counselor Wolf?
Actually, this will be brief, Emily, because you answered my question, because it seems skill sets are very different to actively pursue and go after grants as opposed to administer. So what I heard you say is that department heads, directors will still be responsible for pursuing that and actively applying, but it really is the administration and management of that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Counselor Shaw?
Assistance or interim city manager actually answered the question I was going to mention about compliance. And also oftentimes those grants come with administrative fees. And so it oftentimes will cover the cost of the position. And I write hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of grants, and my salary has been covered each and every year because of that. And oftentimes too, you don't know what grants are coming down, so it's a little hard to quantify as you look 5, 10, 15 years, because there's new grants coming up all the time. So unfortunately, it's a little more challenging to have a magic 8 ball and look at what's coming down the pike. But love the discussion. This is great.
Counselor Gaducy?
Thank you. Is there a way to make the salary directly correlated with the grants being brought in? So let's say create a salary cap and they have to cover their own salary?
I would not, I'm not sure if I am qualified to answer that question. But that would be not a typical arrangement. It also, from a hiring standpoint, I think it'd be very difficult to recruit a talented employee, knowing that their job is at stake with the amount of revenue that they bring in.
Counselor Wolf?
I appreciate your creativity, Counselor Gaducy, but because this isn't the person going after grants, where I almost feel like that's the sales in off a commission. This is someone who's just trying to administer and make sure we stay in compliance. So that would be an odd ask. I agree, but I love the creativity. So.
Mayor Lube?
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate hearing about, the grants that are in the works and, doing a lot of the lobbying. And I hope we get them. The $1 million Safe Streets for All, I think, is the one that is at risk that they're concerned about, that we would have to cover the individual in case. And I know we've been told that we will not be getting what used to be known as earmarks because they took them out of the budget the last time. So everyone is resubmitting what it is. I guess, and again, I think I want to preface this by saying, I think this is a wonderful idea. I think we should absolutely do it in the future when we know a little bit more. And I guess I would say that I could be supportive of this if we, at some point throughout the year got one of the big grants and were able to work it in. But at this point, just knowing how many of these are at risk, I mean, I think CDBG is not even in the budget that's been proposed by the federal government. And so there's just too much uncertainty right now. But if we get, advice or news in 6 months that we got, the build grant or something like that, I would love to turn around and say, great, that's a wonderful trigger for us to be able to do that. I'm just really struggling saying that this is something that we should invest in right now with so much grant uncertainty. I wish we could, I really do. But I think these are hard conversations that we're supposed to be having now.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you mind if I respond? Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Thank you. Safe, okay. Safe Streets for All is different from the Safe Routes to School program. So the Metro Regional Government has let us know that there's uncertainty about the future of the Safe Routes to School program. And so we have a position that's funded through grant dollars through that program. The Safe Streets for All is a federal grant program that continues. We were just notified by Secretary Duffy that they awarded $15 million just for 2 projects for construction. The funding we received, it was, I think, $1.6 million in partnership with the county and Metro was for planning. And that positions us well for $10+ million to actually implement the safety planning. And so that program will continue, though there's, of course, no guarantee that we'll get construction funding.
Counselor Schlack?
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions. One, if the committee were to not be supportive of funding a grants manager position, would that require an amendment to the schedule of appropriations that we will be considering for approval this evening?
From a funding or from a procedural standpoint, there would have to be an amendment on the floor, and that would have to be voted upon. And then that would get added as an amendment to the proposed budget before going to a vote. And if an amendment exceeds over 10% of the appropriation, then we do have to have another committee hearing.
Thank you. I personally support retaining the funding for the grants manager position so we can proceed tonight. But if there's a majority of the committee that wishes to make such an amendment and go through that procedural process in order to defund it, then I welcome that majority of the committee to take action at this time.
Ethan Postle.
Thank you, Chair. Interim City Manager Tritch, I was surprised to hear that the new position would be more compliance focused as opposed to new grant focused, with the new grants, focus falling to the department heads. From my outside perspective, as a community member not familiar with municipal grant funding, it would seem to me the opposite, that, department heads who are closer to the day-to-day operation might be in a better place to track compliance reporting requirements, and also may not have the time because they're busy doing their day job to go out and seek grant funding. Whereas maybe an FTE could dedicate, especially somebody who maybe that's their professional field. Maybe they know where to go to look for the grants. They know who to talk to, how to write a grant application, things like that. Anyway, it was just surprising to me. I would have expected the opposite. Is that common practice throughout municipal grant operations, or any context on that?
So it's really a more of a size issue as far as the organization of this position. For a city of our size, it would be more common to see that in a centralized function, but it is a collaborative process with the department, as they would have to understand what the programmatic outcomes or outputs are that are required of the program. That being said, certainly once you get to become a larger city, if you're looking at like a city of Portland, each of their bureaus that receive grants would have someone dedicated at the department level or at the bureau level that are overseeing the compliance of the grants.
And I'll just chime in to say we sort of take on grants as three distinct phases. So there's the grant pursuit piece of it, finding the grant opportunities, writing the grant applications, winning the grant. So, and then complying, developing the contracting, the agreements, the reporting requirements, and the dispersal of funds. So implementation against those grants. So here in Tigard, the teammates wear many hats. So we have teammates in the city manager's office who pursue grants, write them up, and who do the different reporting requirements. Our directors who are frontline for many of the technical areas, they are all working directors. And so they're very close to things like water and parks and broadband and everything else. So they're often aware of things we should pursue. And they're also on the implementation side. But that key middle piece, the compliance piece, where we're following the letter of the law or the expectations around what's required, is currently done as the third or fourth job of our contracts and procurement manager. Who is also trying to do quite a few other things, including IGAs. And so it's just an effort to provide some relief there so that we can continue to provide excellence on the contracts that we commit to, or the grants that we commit to.
Thank you. That's helpful. Have any grants been lost or rendered ineligible due to a failure in compliance issue?
So we while this wasn't a failure of compliance issue, we did recently have to issue a reimbursement to the Federal Economic Development Agency for a change in land usage. We received a grant to develop an industrial job site, which we then wanted to transition to a municipal use. So it was a lot of evaluation of the legal understanding of it, a lot of back and forth with the agency. And so that just became another thing. We've also come, there have been occasions where we've had to work closely with partners, for example, at the state level for federal transportation dollars or pass-through dollars through the state, where we've had to do some negotiation for utilization of funds to spend within a timeline, so on and so forth.
Thanks. And so is it the opinion of the staff that having somebody in a full-time position like is requested in the budget here would have prevented that or made that smoother?
Additional staff resource would provide further capacity, so allowing, for example, our contracts and purchasing manager to focus solely on the contracts and purchasing and allow this person to be the liaison, ensuring that our project managers are doing necessary reporting to do the liaising with partners. Even if we were to receive fewer grants in the next year, they would be very busy.
Counselor Robbins?
Thank you, Chair. Interim City Director Trich touched on this a little bit, but I just wanted to hear a little bit more details on who currently handles grant compliance. How well are these employees trained in doing grant compliance, and how much time does this take percentage-wise out of their day? So what would their jobs look like if they had this taken away?
Currently, so this isn't to say that the function isn't currently happening. It's an added bonus to all of our existing staff. And so there are many, many individuals who are involved, particularly on the finance and contracts and purchasing team that help support the compliance and oversight of our grants. I couldn't pinpoint an exact FTE, but we're estimating with the accumulation of the combined number of people that it touches, because it includes both procurement, also compliance. There are multiple aspects of grant administration that's involved. We're currently estimating to begin with, about 0.5 FTE, with the expectation that that would ramp up with higher number of grants potentially in the future.
That was not exactly what I was asking. I was wondering, I understand you can't quantify for everybody, but it's various people in contracting who do this. Do they have specific training and experience aside from what they're doing here? And is it getting overwhelming, or is it well within their day-to-day work? I kind of want to see the benefit of to our other staff, and it sounds like maybe it's spread out among a bunch of different people.
So currently, I would say we don't have a specialized skill set within the finance team. It is kind of an added responsibility again. We have individuals like our contract purchasing manager who attends specific trainings. So juggling both, trying to understand a new responsibility with grants, in addition to our work with contracts and procurement. In addition to that, our assistant finance director is regularly involved. Just doing some of the regular reporting, going through our some of the online reporting websites to do the function of actually submitting reports, compiling all the financial reports. I mean, there's quite a few different things that are involved that touch multiple people. And if I had to say about training, or speak to training, I would say there's not, again, like there isn't a dedicated position where we have specialized training in this field. It just continues to be an added responsibility to our existing staff.
Thanks. There's a number of requirements associated with federal grants and reporting. And so there's some training relevant to that our contracts and purchasing manager will engage in. Also, agencies have agency-specific guidance. For example, several of us attended a virtual HUD training because of the $500,000 HVAC award. And so we needed to get special training on just their system, their platform, on how to access and utilize their funds, their compliance documentation, of which there is many, and the various reporting requirements. And the requirements keep changing. We were just informed of the requirements under this administration that modifies some of the language that we can use pertaining to grant implementation. And so there's moving goalposts that we have to remain agile and aware of. If the work related to grant administration wasn't on our contracts and purchasing teammates, she would be able to focus more on the IGAs, leases, and the procurement work, of which there's a lot, and that's also increasing.
Are there any additional questions or comments on the May 12th budget follow-up items, or are we okay to proceed? Counselor Schlatt?
Just a friendly reminder, regarding the third topic that was brought up, the Parks and Recreation fee, that would require a code amendment to adjust at some point in the future if the council were so inclined. Am I recalling that from last time correctly?
Counselor, that is correct. So the fee itself that's assessed, that's based on an index. And so council has the ability to identify or change an index. And staff is happy to return to council with different options on what that could look like. But as far as the split goes, one thing I did want to clarify as we're looking at the Q&A that was provided, this was on page 5, top number 75. That split for fiscal year 25. While it does look like the swing for the reliance on the PARF percentage increased dramatically for that 1 year, that was intended to be a temporary one-time swing. That was intended to spend down some of the reserve balance due to some vacancy savings, and it should resume closer to historical levels in fiscal year 26.
Okay. If there are no additional questions or comments, then I think we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the state revenue sharing budget. So we will now open the public hearing on the state revenue sharing. As everyone knows, state law requires the city must hold a public hearing to receive state revenue sharing. Kalina, would you please discuss the state revenue sharing budget?
And actually, I think our agenda and our slides are in slightly different order. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up what was basically the aggregate of the proposed budget. And I'll talk about that, and then I'll run into state revenue sharing. So everyone should have, as we handed out when you came in, a couple of sheets here. This one here with the blue lines, that is going to be, and I apologize for the small print. I hope you brought your readers. This is the updated schedule of appropriations as presented as of last meeting. So it has the original proposed schedule there, then any changes that we have currently submitted to the budget committee, and then what is being asked to be approved tonight. As Councilor Slack stated, that if there was a change, it would need to be made on this, so that would have to be a proposal. So I'm going to read what we have currently. As you can see here, there were just a few changes. Each of those, the next page that you have after the page with the blue lines, is copies of the slides from last week, just highlighting what these changes are here. So as you see in that first column, general fund had an increase of $143,635. And then if you look at the next page, I went ahead and gave you the slides so that you can see the general fund ones, and we didn't have a total on that page, so put in a total for you. And then the next one there, you'll see the transient lodging tax change. There was the change to the street maintenance fund, and then the change in the appropriations due to public works engineering, which actually hit all of these 5 other funds. And so you can see all of that in your, edited appropriation. And that brings us for the city to a total proposed budget adjusted of $240,516,265. And along with those adjustments, there was the one adjustment with the position in strategic initiatives, adding the one FTE. And that would bring the total proposed adjusted position count to 364.4. The next one, and I apologize, I didn't put a slide in for it because there were no changes, is the TCDA appropriations. That is going to be the next page that you have. That is exactly the same as was in your TCDA proposed, but I figured you wanted a nice handout to see it there and that there were no changes to that. And so that appropriation remains at $8,305,096. And now I'll talk about state revenue sharing, since we've gone over the summary of that. So state revenue sharing under ORS 221.770 allows for the city to take a portion of the state revenues brought in for liquor tax and cannabis tax. We are forecasting $725,000 coming into the general fund. And that requires that we pass a resolution requesting the revenue at a budget hearing, which will actually occur at the council meeting, but we want to get that approval here as well. It also requires that we levy property taxes in the previous year and that we hold our public hearing here at the budget committee electing to receive that.
Thank you for that presentation. Is there a motion to receive the $725,000 in state revenue sharing fund into FY26?
I move that we accept that funding.
Okay, great. I will now take a roll call vote for approving Tigard to receive the city's share of state revenue sharing. If you're in favor, please say yes. If you're opposed, please say no. Aaron McCool,
Yes.
Ethan Postrel,
Yes.
Felipe Aguilar,
Yes.
Kelly Piment, yes. Lauren Poling,
Yes.
William Lewis,
Yes.
Mayor Lube,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf. Oh, sorry. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Counselor Wolf. You know, it's the end of a long Monday. Sorry. Sorry, Counselor Wolf. Council President Wolf. All right. Counselor Gaducy,
Yes.
Counselor Robbins,
Yes.
Counselor Schlack,
Yes.
Counselor Shaw,
Yes.
Counselor Hu.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is passed by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee. With only one mayor. Okay. So, okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is the debt service and levy property tax rate. Kalina, if you could please lead us through the debt service and levy property tax rate.
Thank you. This one is much shorter. So this is to allow us to levy property taxes and in order to pay our debt service. So our permanent property tax rate, as we're all aware, is 2.5131 per every $1,000 of assessed value. That does not change. Our local option levy, as approved in our last election ballot, is 29 cents per 1,000 of assessed value. And then for our debt service to cover our general obligation bonds, we are requesting $2,587,000.
Is there a motion to approve the debt service and levy property tax rate?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
2 seconds.
Can I just ask, previously, we had to have very specific language in order to pass this and have that in the actual motion. Is that just for city council or is that, okay, excellent, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the roll call vote. Hopefully I'll get everybody's name and title correct this time. If you are in favor of the motion to approve the levy and property tax rate, sorry, I will now take roll call for approving the levy. Sorry, excuse me. I'm going to regroup for just a moment. Counselor Gaducy, while I do that.
Just for clarification, what specifically are we voting for? So are we voting for this rate for the local option levy?
So yes, you are voting that these are our property tax rates. Granted, the local option levy has already been approved and the permanent rate is the permanent rate. But yes, you have to approve that those are what you want us to send forth for the property taxes. And then the debt service is our calculation of what we need to pay that debt service. So yes, and I can read through here. The motion is required to levy the permanent tax rate of $2.5131 per thousand plus an additional 29 cents per 1,000 local option levy tax, and to levy the debt service for general obligation bonds of $2,587,000. So that is what you are approving here, is that we are going to send those items forth to the taxing body.
Pardon my ignorance, but so the local option levy has already been passed and we can't make changes to the permanent. So I'm not saying, what if we said no? What happens? Like,
Then we have no property taxes.
Like, what?
So you can't say you want to increase them because it is a permanent rate. The levy already went through, but we are required that you agree with these and approve them so that we can submit them.
Got it. So approval to submit what's been.
Yes.
In that hypothetical, if,
Counselor Wolf?
So back in the way day, you actually had input and had an opportunity to set a rate that was appropriate. So I feel like the hoops are still there, but the ability to, change anything. But the process is still in place.
Any additional, Ethan Postro?
so in that hypothetical scenario, I mean, could be, I don't know, another pandemic or something, and maybe the population is, very economically distressed, and we, could we conceivably choose not to impose the tax? Obviously, we would still have the debt service due, right? So then we would just pay that out of the general fund and find that $2.5 million cuts elsewhere throughout the general fund to fund the debt service. Is that conceptually how that would work if we were to choose not to impose the taxes for whatever reason?
I apologize. I'm not sure if I can qualify to answer that question. I would have to defer to our city attorney to answer that question. But from my understanding of Oregon budget law, I think Councilor Wolf said it correctly, that the ability to influence and change the actual rate, it's a yes or no vote by this body. But I think what you're asking is there, if there was a no vote, would that mean no taxes would be assessed? From my understanding, I think that has happened before, but it's usually due to administrative errors, not due to intentional votes of a body.
I'd just be happy to follow up with you. The city of Beaverton only recently levied their full permanent tax rate. So you can choose an amount less than, but you cannot choose an amount over. So that maybe would help. So, I mean, in theory, you could probably say no for anything, but you could levy below. We just can't charge more.
Counselor Schlack?
Thank you, Chair. I move to call the question.
Okay, all right, thank you. I was like, oh, there's my Robert's cheat sheet. Lauren, did you have a question? Okay. All right. There's a motion to call the question. So, can we go ahead and vote on this one? All right. Um, I need a second on that one.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all of your patience as well tonight. It has been a very long Monday, and I apologize. So first of all, Aaron McCool,
Yes.
Ethan Postrel,
Yes.
Felipe Aguilar,
Yes.
Gregory Brown is not here. Kelly Pement, yes. Lauren Poling,
Yes.
William Lewis,
Yes.
Mayor Lu,
Yes.
Council President Wolf,
Yes.
Councilor Gaducy,
Yes.
Councilor Robbins,
Yes.
Councilor Schlack,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
and Councilor Hu.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is passed by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee. Councilor President Wolf.
So I so appreciate Mayor Loop giving that example. And then Mayor, correct me, Beaverton's rate, just because it's killing me, they're above $4. What's their rate? So they're.
Oh, yeah, they're like double ours. Yeah.
Theirs is way different. So I just had to say.
Yes, yes.
That's pretty
I apologize
simple.
for not clarifying. They have a significantly higher amount and they haven't had to levy the full rate until I think this current budget year.
Councilor Hu?
Thank you, Chair. Since we got through the public comments so early, I will just request that you ask the network administrator one more time if there are people online waiting to make comments.
Absolutely. Network Administrator, do we have anyone waiting in the queue that might have any additional comments for the Budget Committee? While we're waiting for the Network Administrator to respond, Councilor Robbins?
Thank you. I just wanted to circle back to the Parks and Rec fee and the division between Parks and Rec versus the general fund. I've looked through this budget book and I couldn't find the current proposed division for fiscal year 26. And you did say that it was coming back down to more traditional or standard levels. Could you tell us what percentage is going to be general fund this year?
Page number is 408 in the budget book. And the split is 2.1 million from the general fund and 2.7 million from the park and recreation fee.
So it's a little bit more from the Parks Fund, like 52, 53% maybe? Is the goal to eventually get it so that the parks is less than 50%?
Could you repeat that question one more time?
My understanding historically is that it was started out as the Parks and Rec was kind of a supportive, filling in the gaps, right? And now it's moved, to the last couple of years, it's been heavier on the park side. And then last year was significantly more on the park side, up to 60, almost 69%, because you were trying to spend down some reserves. But when it first started, disregarding 2016, when it was very different, it was 43, 46, 33. It was, the general fund was covering more. And over the last several years, just the last 2 years, not counting this year, the Parks Fund was spending more. So is it going to continue to be that way where we're funding our parks through the Parks and Rec Fund more than through the general fund? Because I don't know that council or anything, if that's in council's purview, since I'm new, did we make that decision at some point to appropriate more of the money from the Parks and Rec Fund?
So I think there's a policy question in there. The council does have the ability to set fees, including the index that's used to change the rate of the annual increases to the park and recreation fee. If you're looking at it from a historical perspective, the park and recreation fee had followed an index that was shared last week, the 4.6% increase, while the general fund overall only increases by 3 to 4% a year. And so as our costs continue to escalate, naturally there's an inherent imbalance because the overall revenue growth also just doesn't keep up with our cost increases. And so you're going to naturally have a higher shift to the park and recreation fee as that index is at a higher pace than what a general fund is.
Thank you.
Okay, network administrator, are there any, is there anyone online or on Teams that has any questions at this point?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions at this time? Okay, are we then now ready to consider approving this budget? Okay, is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 2026 City of Tigard budget with budget and technical adjustments as presented totaling $240,516,265?
I move that we accept the budget as outlined.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I will now take a roll call vote to approve the fiscal year 2026 City of Tigard budget. If you are in favor, please say yes. If opposed, please say no. Aaron McCool,
Yes.
Ethan Postrel,
Yes.
Felipe Aguilar,
Yes.
Kelly Piment, yes. Lauren Poling,
Yes.
William Lewis,
Yes.
Mayor Lube,
No.
Council President Wolf.
I just want to comment where I really appreciate the conversation that Mayor Lou brought forward. I think there was clearly not complete clarity with all of us on the role of the particular position, but I do vote yes.
Councilor Gaducy,
No, I don't want to consult.
Councilor Robbins,
Yes.
Councilor Schlack,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Councilor Hu,
I think we can wait one more year for the positions. I also vote no.
okay, the motion is passed. However, votes were split 10-3. And I believe that, yeah, the motion is passed. Thank you, everyone. Okay. So finally, a motion is required to approve the Town Center Development Agency budget. Is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 2026 Town Center Development Agency budget with budget appropriations totaling $8,305,096?
I move to approve the budget.
Second?
Okay, I will now take a roll call vote to approve the FY 2026 TCDA budget. If you're in favor, please say yes. If opposed, please say no. Aaron McCool,
Yes.
Ethan Postral,
Yes.
Felipe Aguilar,
Yes.
Gregory Brown is not here. Kelly Piment, yes. Lauren Poling,
Yes.
William Lewis,
Yes.
Mayor Lube,
Yes.
Council President Wolf,
Yes.
Councilor Gaducy.
Yeah.
Councilor Robbins,
Yes.
Councilor Schlack,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Councilor Hu.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is passed by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee. I think we are ready to adjourn. Thank you, Budget Committee, for your time and commitment to approving the FY 2026 budget. Are there any final comments? Councilor Schlack?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I'd like to thank all the committee members for their robust conversations over the last 3 meetings, and of course to our city teammates who prepared the budget and were an incredible resource this entire time, both those who have been speaking and those who have been in attendance in case we had any interesting questions. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to considering this on the city council side in a few weeks' time.
Thank you so much, everyone. This is part of why I love living here is we have so many people who work and spend their extra time here caring about our community. So thank you very much. The Budget Committee meeting is now adjourned.